Hello and welcome. It seems like I am telling you guys in every video that I'm making lately that it is rainy out, and that is the case today as well. But we need rain in the spring, so I'm not complaining. But I do find myself thinking of things to do that are not outside as much because I love spending time outside, but you can only be outside in downpours and really rainy days so much before getting soggy. So we often think of rainy days as being perfect days for reading books, and that is true. But our rainy evenings are also perfect times to watch movies. So today I am sharing with you some movies that I think are better than the books. Now, I realize this is my opinion completely, and it is very subjective. So, what I think is a movie that's better than the book, you might disagree. But what I'm hoping to do here is maybe have some dialogue around it. I'm happy in the comments if you feel very strongly about one of my choices and want to tell me. But I'm also thinking that if you haven't seen the movie, but you do love that book, or you haven't read the book, but you've been curious about it, or are looking for a good movie to watch, that you'll get some ideas here in this video. I also think that one of the important aspects to a movie being better than the book is twofold. Number one, the casting has to be perfect. So the casting is so important. And then the second thing is, if possible, having the author or maybe the author's relatives involved in the writing of the screenplay or the movie, or even if it's a TV series, having some involvement with the original author or their family, I think is also another component that can be helpful. Another aspect to this is my acknowledgement that as I'm choosing these movies as being better than the books, it means for me in my life, I will most likely not ever reread the book, but instead watch the movie. And they are movies that I am comfortable rewatching. So it's not like watch the movie and be done. These are movies that I've enjoyed enough that I would rewatch it, that I would rewatch with my family in most cases, and that this would be something where I don't need to keep the books necessarily on my shelf anymore, because when I have a hankering for that story, I would reach for the movie instead. One of the things that we joke about in the Cozy Reader Book Club is that we read The Princess Bride by William Goldman one year, and we said, oh, we'll read it and then we'll watch the movie. And we still to this day are very much in agreement that the Princess Bride movie is head and shoulders above better than the book. And that is something that I feel pretty strongly about and pretty solid in my opinion on, that the movie just does so much better of a job. The book is kind of all over the place. Another book that we discovered in the Cozy Reader Book Club that we think is not as good as its counterpart movie is Auntie Mame, and this is by Patrick Dennis. We read this, and while we enjoyed it, we all agreed that the Rosalind Russell movie is better. We loved her portrayal of Auntie Mame. In fact, I loved it so much that I went looking for all the other movies that she was in just so I could get some more of her as an actress. So again, having that casting be so well done is important. This book has such a flamboyant main character and a somewhat fraught relationship with her nephew that in the book it just doesn't do it justice like it does in the movie. The movie just handles the racist elements that people were coming across during this time. It handles that really well. It handles Auntie Mame's friendships better. Again, her relationship with her nephew. All of the little vignettes and stories that are in this book just feel more tied and wrapped together than the book did. We've got her bohemian outfits and her avant-garde art and her unique and bizarre perspectives on education. And all of that, while very fleshed out in the book by Patrick Dennis, just took on a more humorous and cohesive light in the movie. So if you haven't seen Rosalind Russell in Auntie Mame, I highly recommend sitting down one evening this spring and watching it. A movie that I think I've mentioned before as being better than the book is The 100-Foot Journey. This has Helen Mirren and Om Purim, and it is easily one of my favorite movies ever. I love the Indian food that is in that. I love the family dynamic that's in that. I love it so much, to the point where I've read about the making of the movie, where the house that is just 100 feet across the road was actually fabricated simply for this movie. But it's so fantastic. I love how they handle discrimination in just such a gentle way. And I also love Helen Mirren's character. I love the love story that's in it. It's just a fantastic movie, and I think better than the book. So the next one might be a little bit contentious, and that is Brooklyn by Colm Toibin. I just recently finished reading this and just noted a couple oddities in the book that felt a little bit out of place and odd. And so I decided to watch the movie to see how it handled those kind of odd scenes, and they were completely out of it. And I actually really loved the romance in the movie better. I also really loved how we had the romance of our main character who was in love with her home country of Ireland. So that was like a main point in this book, and I thought the movie did a really great job showing that. I do think there was a little bit more depth in the book about the pain that she was going through, but I think the movie did a fantastic job at showing that, and I think it was sufficient. And I think the deletion of those, again, odd scenes in the movie just made it more enjoyable. And so going forward, I will definitely want to rewatch Brooklyn through this, I think, February and March season. Like, it just very much feels like a February and March movie. And so next year at this time, I'm sure I will be rewatching Brooklyn, but I will most likely not be picking up this book. I did love Colm Toibin's writing, however, and so I am going to be looking for more books by him to pick up soon. Next, I have kind of an unusual addition to this list, in that we have a younger heroine in it, and that is Enola Holmes. This is by Nancy Springer, and you can see on this it says Netflix film series coming soon. This is another movie series that I think was cast so well. So we have Millie Bobby Brown playing Enola Holmes. We have Helena Bonham Carter playing her mother. It's just fantastic having her in this. And then we have Henry Cavill, who is playing Sherlock Holmes. And with those three characters, in addition to the other side characters in this, just make this movie to me be fantastic. Enola Holmes breaks the fourth wall, and she'll turn and talk to those of us who are watching and kind of bring us in that way. And also, between her and her mother, they have all these little puzzles that they are figuring out together, and little meanings, like flowers have a certain meaning, and she does a lot of anagrams and that kind of thing. And I love the puzzling parts to this. It is a very strong female protagonist viewpoint. We have Enola, who she tells us right away that her name spelled backwards means alone, and she does spend a lot of time alone in this. But they have made a second movie, and you can see her really kind of moving into community, not only with her family of origin, but also those around her that she comes into contact with. And they're coming out with a third movie later this spring, which I will watch with my family as soon as we're able to. We've actually watched the first two together. I've seen them multiple times, and this is a movie where I will not ever feel the need to ever read the book. I feel like the way that the writers have written the Enola Holmes movies have far surpassed any kind of enjoyment that I had gotten out of reading the first two. There are also graphic novels that are part of the Enola Holmes franchise, but again, they are not nearly as good as the movies, and at this point, we will just be sticking with watching the movies. Another one that I would say is Eat, Pray, Love. Now, I will say, Eat, Pray, Love is not my favorite movie, but having read Elizabeth Gilbert's book before seeing the movie, at this point, I would rewatch the movie before I would reread the book. So again, with that being the criterion by which I'm, sort of measuring how I'm sharing here today, that would to me mean that I think the movie is better. And again, I think that is not necessarily Elizabeth Gilbert's writing so much as the fact that Julie Roberts plays Elizabeth Gilbert because it is her memoir. And I think Julia Roberts does a fantastic job in that. And Under the Tuscan Sun is similar in my mind. I think with that memoir, it is a great exploration in travel writing, but Diane Lane playing that role, and then they dramatized it a bit more with, the heartbreak and the love story, all of that. I just think it brings an excitement and also just beauty into that. So I would think Under the Tuscan Sun is similar. Also, I recently shared my spring recommendations video, and in that I shared The Inheritance, which has Meredith Baxter in it. And that is based on a story by Louisa May Alcott. And I have not read it, but people in the comments of that video mentioned that they much preferred the movie to that story. So that could be another addition to this list. The next one also might be contentious as well, and that is Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. So I love Thomas Hardy. The first one of his books I read was Test of D'Urbervilles, and that was, probably 30 years ago, which is really long ago. And I read Far from the Madding Crowd probably about 5 years ago and really enjoyed it. But I recently watched the 2015 adaptation and I loved it so much. While I will keep this book on my shelf, I will, from now on, when I am kind of feeling like I want that love story set in an agricultural setting of mixed star-crossed lovers, then I will choose the movie at this point over the book. I loved the house settings, I loved the clothing, I loved the romance. I really think that this was cast so well. Carey Mulligan playing Bathsheba was phenomenal. And I also really loved how things were a little bit more clear. So our villain is shown, I feel like, more as the villain. You can really kind of see that. And the love story, I think, was a little bit more obvious and more fleshed out and just more rich. So again, I love Thomas Hardy. I love his writing style. I certainly will be reading more of his books than just the 3 or 4 that I have read. But going forward, I will be watching the movie Far from the Madding Crowd and not reading this book. People have also mentioned Mary Poppins, which is the book by P.L. Travers, that the movie with Julie Andrews is better, but I haven't read the book, so I don't really have a frame of reference for that. People have also said Sound of Music, also with Julie Andrews, so again, casting is so important, but they've said that that movie they think is better than the Von Trapp family memoir that Maria Von Trapp wrote. I have read a book by her and it was interesting, but I just think that Julie Andrews brings a vivaciousness and a vibrance to that story that the memoir just doesn't have. It's very interesting and it's very factual, and of course Disney definitely dramatized the whole situation, but Sound of Music is just fantastic. I do know that Sound of Music is a movie that we come back to year after year. More hot takes. So next I have All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. This is an omnibus version. It also has All Things Bright and Beautiful in it. And while I love James Herriot, we have his children's pictures books. We have other books that he has written on our bookshelves. He is a staple in our house. But this latest version of All Creatures Great and Small that PBS is doing, at this point, no one in my family will be reading the books. We will just be watching that show. We absolutely love that show. It is our top favorite TV series of all time, I would say. We all would say that it is our favorite. The casting for that is so phenomenal. Nicholas Ralph as James Harriet, Rachel Shelton as Helen, Callum Woodhouse as Tristan, Samuel West as Siegfried Farnan, so phenomenal. And Anna Madeley as Mrs. Hall. When we are watching it, at least for us, it doesn't feel like they're acting. Like, you're not remembering like, oh, they're actors. It is cast so well that you feel like the characters themselves have such similar personalities as the people who are playing them. It's just phenomenal. And I know, again, this is a controversial belief, but I feel like the writers have done such a great job at it that if they do deviate from history and from the story, I trust them in that. I think James Harriet's son is involved in this as well, and I trust them in that, and am totally along for the ride. So again, we will be keeping this on our shelves, but we would not be reaching for this. Instead, we are anxiously awaiting the next season that comes out in a painfully long period of time. The last addition I have to this list is Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. I've mentioned this numerous times. I have all 5 of the books that were in this original trilogy. She just wrote another one that came out, I believe, last year. And I have read the books and I enjoy them. To me, they just feel very warm and comforting. But after watching the 3-season television show that I believe is now on Netflix. When I first started watching it, it was only on Sundance, but I think now it's on Netflix. Watching that show after reading these, at this point, I will keep the books on my shelf, but I will reach for that TV series every autumn without fail. And there's definitely spice in here. Open door romance is probably a better way to describe it. And there is also some open door romance in the show, but I know where those parts are and I just skip ahead, and it's not a ton, and you kind of just know when it's coming and you just skip ahead. And also, because it's fantasy and we've got witches and vampires, there is violence, and again, I know where those parts are, and so I skip ahead. But as far as a fantasy television series, for me, this is the movie is what I would be reaching for to watch. And again, it's something that I watch every year like clockwork when autumn arrives. So it's a comfort watch for me and something that I love. And so I would not be reading this anymore, but instead will be watching the TV series. So let me know, of these, are there any that you feel are egregious and you really disagree with, or are they ones that you also agree with? Also, I would love to hear what you would add to this list. I know I've heard Jaws. A lot of people think the movie is better than the book. I have not read the book. And also Devil Wears Prada. I love that movie, but I haven't read the book. So I would love to hear what you would add to this list or subtract from this list. So let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.